It's a pleasure to welcome you for the next following after the vacation time meeting or webinar of Academia. First of all, before we start, I would ask everyone to mute microphone if you're not speaking at the moment. This will allow us to pursue the presentation smoothly without any additional sounds. So you're most welcome to ask all questions also during the webinar. But if you're not talking, please just mute your microphone. You can ask questions both on chat or by raising hand. We will just I will just moderate the discussion and allow you to ask your question. So my name is Jan Paczesny. I'm affiliated with Academia. Academia is a company that supports the scientific society in Poland for 10 years now. And this work for scientific society is at the different fields. So we both perform or offer trainings, also including writing and scientific papers. But the work of Academia is also in field of helping in preparation of the scientific publication by helping in proofreading or even translations. The series of webinars are in partnership with the Association of Top 500 Innovators and the Polish-American Fulbright Commission. So we are really happy to have these partners for this series. I will take the liberty to invite you for the next month seminar already. So next month, on 1st of October, we will have Wojciech Węgrzyński, who is a professor at the Institute of Building Techniques, and he will say about the efficient promotion of science. And today, our special guest from Sweden is Olle Bergmannem, who will talk about the effective academic presentation. Olle, the team is yours.
Thanks for inviting me. Jestem szwedzkim pisarzem i wykładowcą, ale nie mówię bardzo po polsku, so I stick to English, unfortunately. But I will start with a nice slide from, as you can see, it's Łódź, and it's a place where I have some real nice personal memories and great professional.
Olle?
Yes?
Olle, we cannot see your slides. You need to share screen.
Okay.
Before, so I stopped sharing my screen. Now you
First things first. Here we go. I thought I clicked the. So, do you see my screen now?
Yes, but now you need to click Start Presentation because we don't.
Okay.
Yes.
So here we go.
Yes.
Okay, so here is Łódź. Great personal memories, great professional experiences. I can tell you more about it at the end, but now let's get started. And the stuff you will hear the nearest hour, where does it come from? Well, I'm a communications consultant, public speaker, and professional writer. And I'm very interested in science and training methods, communication, rhetoric, but also language and history. You can say that I was the lab guy, the research assistant who changed his pipette and into a pen. And here is my professional timeline for my career. I started out at Lund University, left the research environment, learned communication in a publishing company, in corporate communications, in advertising. And for more than 20 years, I have worked as a self-employed consultant. I have many high-profile customers in Sweden, like Scania, AstraZeneca, Karolinska Institutet, Lund University, and so on. And at the side, I'm also a writer. I'm writing history books, and the latest one is not shown here. It's actually a book about the Wild West. So you can see me as the person who's walking the border between the different areas of professionalism. So here you can see me walk between the sea of science and the landmass of industry. Right now, I'm working on a communication handbook for Springer Nature. It's a really exciting task, and it's great fun working with it, and I'm learning a lot, and I'm rethinking a lot of things as well. During this talk, I will sometimes show this light bulb, and it demonstrates that we should have some interaction. And my first interaction here is, have you heard everything I've said? Is my voice good? Do you understand what I'm saying? John, people are waiting in the lobby, I see here. Are you using the chat, or feel free to use audio for quick.
Okay, so there is 6 yeses
Okay.
in chat, and you have chat very close to where you had your mouse pointer just few seconds ago with that orange dot.
Say again, please. That.
Can you see your red button and then 2 buttons left? There is a chat.
Okay.
And then you click it, and then there you will see the chat answers.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very much a Zoom person, so this interface is. I just have to find things. Thanks. Okay. So let us first ask the questions. How important is communication when we do things? Well, sometimes you can actually doubt whether communication is that important. For example, not long ago, this article was published saying that assessment by audiences shows little effect of science communication training. They showed that scientists who had learned communicating, that not much did happen. They had actually the same results when those who had trained and those who had received training, when they met their audiences, a layman's audience, they did see little effect. That seems a bit problematic, but I think I have the answer to that, because if you define big thinking and small thinking when it comes to communication, small thinking is about the details. How should I write this sentence? How should I plan this presentation? But the big thinking is, how should I succeed in what I'm doing by using communication? And with those communication activities, what are the goals? So let me introduce a metaphor. Pasta bolognese. Let's say that the things you do in life, you're professional projects or your research projects, they are a plate of pasta bolognese. So which part is the communication here? Is it the stuff you sprinkle on the top? No, communication is not much more important than that. Is it the sauce? The bolognese sauce? No, bolognese sauce is, so to say, the outcome of your project. The communication is actually the pasta. It's the bulk. It's the thing that keeps everything together. So that's the mindset I want to share with you today, that you should always see that at the heart of whatever you do, there is communication. And history have taught us that when systems fail or when armies go to their doom, it's very often communication that has failed. And here's another definition. So we are not like talking and thinking about different things. I use these concepts. I'm talking about scientific peer-to-peer communication. It's scientists communicating with other scientists. And then I talk about science dissemination, when science people are communicating with everyone outside science. And together I call this the communication of science. And as you will see, I have a very universal mindset. I define some huge patterns, and then I zoom in and look at the details. So we will walk in and out of those concepts a little during the presentation. And I promised 5 tips, and let's start with the first one. You should always maintain a goal-oriented mindset. What do I mean with that? Well, you should always know why you are presenting or writing or recording a video. You should know when you have reached the top of the mountain, your goal. Now I'm here. I've reached what I wanted to reach. So reply to the great answer, the great question, why? Here are some reasons for science people to communicate, to transfer information, to create understanding. That's the teaching situation. To convince an opponent in a rhetorical battle, to sell an idea or a product, to influence other people's decisions. That becomes more and more important for science people. No matter what you're doing with your communication activity, you should always have the ambition to change the world a little. Yes, I hear someone. Is there someone who wants to ask a question? Okay. I have some noise in the...
I can see Tomasz Filonczyk, who has a microphone on and now off. Question?
Okay, very good, very good. So, Kinga. Is Kinga there?
I can help you.
Yeah. So have a look at the chat, and if if someone, if yes, the definitely. Audience is, they are shy and don't want to turn on their microphone, they are free to write chat questions, and you can check that for me.
Definitely, I'm doing
yes.
this already.
Yes, very good, very good. I think that every professional, both academics and people in industry, they should write a personal communication plan. They should have an idea why they are engaging in different kinds of communication activities. And what I mean are presentations, writing, blogging, podcasting, videos, everything. Today, the toolbox of communication is so great, and there are so many audiences, and there are so many forums for communication. And I will run this very quickly. Please get in touch if you want to hear more about communication plan. I will just, this is based on business planning. So I've taken a business plan and I've turned it into a communication plan. So first an analysis, and then you make decisions, and this will eventually result in a timeline and a list of to-dos. And this is a living document which should be updated regularly. So some interaction. I want to, please write in the chat, what do you see as the most challenging communication activities in your profession, your position? What are the most challenging communication activities? Presenting to different audiences, teaching, writing articles, writing for popular science magazines, getting visited by journalists, engaging in competitions or events. So what do you find most challenging?
So Grzegorz wrote communicating ideas with group members. Oh, you can see.
Yeah. Yeah. Any more challenges? You see, the moment you put this, when you're like focusing on this question and thinking for a while and put down some words on a paper or on the computer screen, you are taking the first steps in improving this communication. Yeah, Anna Andrzejkowska, yes, practical skills without personal contact. That's tough. I agree. But we have become much better during the Corona lockdown to use online media to show things and to convey emotion and personality. So keep thinking about what are the big challenges, and feel free to come back to those at the end of the talk. So tip number 2 is that you should always analyze the task and the situation. You should never communicate arbitrarily. You should always use some kind of model, some kind of guidelines that help you approach the task in a structured manner. Here is one of the most classical models for communication. And those of you who have studied signal theory, you see that this is a very technical. It's an imitation from technology, but it's quite useful. This and you see sender and receiver, for example. You as the sender, you should know yourself. Gnostisiavton, as the Greek said. You should know yourself. You should know your strengths. You should you should decrease your weaknesses, but you should always focus on your strengths. And as a presenter, you should always start with your own personality. If you're a funny person, you should use humor. And if you're not a funny person, you should not use humor. You should be clear and structured instead. Those are your superpowers. So there is the greatness with people giving good presentations is that, just as in music, that they are all different. We want to hear different voices. So when I'm giving training sessions with PhD students, we are really underlining that we want to see a personal style for every PhD student. They should not imitate each other. They should not be puppets or like soldiers marching in parade. They should express themselves. When it comes to the target group, the person you are communicating with, it's always there is something special which the elephant is a specialist in here on this slide. So who is the great communicator? Which animal here, from a metaphorical point of view, is the most skilled one to reach and bond with his target group? Is it the crocodile or is it the elephant? Anyone who wants to guess? I will give you a clue. Up. No, there we go. Can someone guess what the ears, why they are important? The elephant is a great communicator because he's listening to his target group. He tries to understand the target group. So, you know, the most boring persons you can meet at a dinner or so are those people who are just interested in themselves and who are not listening to what you're saying. So poor communicators, they are not taking in what the receiver is saying. And that's a tough challenge in this situation here. If I had been in Poland, we had been sitting. I had been standing before you as an audience, but now, yeah, I have to like replay my inner video videos with audiences sitting before me. Here are some examples of target groups for scientists today. First of all, the research community, where you have like you can say different circles, wider and wider circles. First, the usual suspects, the research groups who are always curious what you're doing. They could be partners or they could be your competitors. And then scientists in your broader field and scientists who are working in other fields than your own. But then you see the list here is becoming longer and longer today, actually. And it's my advice to you that you consider this list. You're not only thinking about people in science and people in academia, but also all the different groups that in some way can influence what you are doing. When we talk about analyzing and being structured, you should always use guidelines and you should use a plan. So here is a plan to prepare a presentation, for example. The work will go so much more smoothly if you're following some kind of guide. Then you need a hook for your presentation. You need something that makes your presentation stand out and become more interesting. So here are some examples of things that can make your presentation more interesting. Okay. So that was number 1 and 2, and let's go to number 3. Unfortunately, academia has a somewhat constrained communication culture. More than all, it's conservative. And there is so much to learn from professional communicators in all different kinds of domains. And so don't get your inspiration from your colleagues, get your inspiration from communication professionals outside academia. There is a whole universe of skilled communicators in different domains. Then you should also listen to old wisdom and experience. And what's most important there is rhetoric, the old art of persuasion founded in the Mediterranean area in the 4th century before Christ. It's still very, very useful. The books of rhetoric, they contain some of the super weapons of communication. When you talk about rhetoric, it started as the way of the art of public speaking, but today we say more that it's the art of effective or persuasive communication. You should also have a toolbox thinking. When you're looking at other domains, other professional domains, and look at their methods, you should collect a toolbox. Let's have a look at some tools. And the most powerful tool in communication that I always come back to again and again and again was defined by this man, Aristotle. He wrote the first handbook of communication, Ars Rhetorica. And in this book, which is full of very important stuff about communication, the most important thing is he's defining the means of persuasion, the means of persuasion. 3 strategies you can choose when you want to convince another person. And those 3 are ethos, pathos, logos. If we should use modern English instead, we would say trust, passion, and know-how. So, what is ethos? Ethos is credibility, personal trademark. So when you see something coming from this organization, you will automatically think it's important, relevant, and true. We could discuss if your analysis is right or not, but this is like the knee-jerk reaction we have with something that has such a strong trademark as Harvard, such strong ethos. The second mean of persuasion is our feelings, pathos. Happy feelings or sad feelings. Joy or anger. So here, Adidas, they don't have to argue if it's a good shoe or not. They make him happy. So that's enough. If you use a pathos strategy, just use the feeling. And finally, logos. Logos is what scientists normally use to convince each other. And that's the data. Here's the official health data from Swedish National Agency. You can't be more persuasive than this when you want to explain what's happening with the COVID epidemic in Sweden. So that was rhetoric. In journalism, we learned that when you want to present something, you should start with the most interesting information and then have less interesting information at the end. So that's the typical format of a news article. They always cram the first sentences of the news article with a really interesting information. And then the reader chooses, should I go on and read for more details, or am I happy with the first 2 paragraphs of this news piece? It's a very effective way of presenting information. And it's the total opposite of the typical scientific report. Another tool from the toolbox is the elevator pitch. It's a 1 minute, you can choose 30 seconds or 3 minutes. Everything could be called elevator pitch. I have chosen 1 minute. It's my flavor of elevator pitch. And when I teach it, this is what we build the presentation on. And it can be a young person from a startup. It could be a PhD student or a senior professor. But if you use this, take a screenshot of this, because if you use those questions when you prepare a brief presentation, it will come out great. I have run this for 5-10 years, and we've never had a dull pitch created by this formula. It always gives an interesting and engaged result. Storytelling is probably the oldest way for people to communicate and sharing experience. humans are hardwired to share stories. That's what we're doing all the time. We are sharing the experience of ourselves, of our near ones, or people who live in another country or in another time. We just love listening to stories, and that's why it's so powerful to, if you want to get a message through, turn it into a story, and your audience will be mesmerized. You can be the hero in your own story. Yes. So we're back to, there are many more tools to put in that toolbox, and everyone can do their own journey. Okay, so now is tip number 4. Always plan and act according to the limitations. This is typical advice from a senior. This is what you learn when you have been working for decades in an area. So I note that when I'm teaming up with young people, they always start thinking, what is possible? What can we do? I always start by what are the limits? How much time? How many people? How much money? And then we, so to say, build up a fence around the project thinking, and we move inside the limitations, and we don't waste time of things that are not possible to do. Limitations. I have 60 minutes to present this and interact with you, and it's very important that we keep that time, because you have something planned after this. Something you should think about when you're giving presentations is the limitation, the cognitive limitation of people. Most people, they can just take a certain amount of facts and information and observation per time unit. Very often you see science people, they want to tell all the details. And so they show slides with 4 different graphs, very complicated PowerPoint slides, and they keep talking all the time. And there is no time for the person who is watching to digest and to just sit still and think about what they've learned for a moment. There should always be air. There should always be silence. There was a bit of silence. It was quite comfortable, wasn't it? So, tip number 5. Use modern psychology and ancient. What do I mean with this? Well, for example, rhetoric. It's my definition of rhetoric is effective communication based on human nature. That's what's so amazing about rhetoric, is that it understands how people work socially and intellectually. So you will see that the advice from 2,000-year-old manuals in public speaking, they converge with the advice from modern psychology. Now I will give you some examples here. First of all, we should know that we have a lot of programs inside of us, behavioral programs, which were developed for a creature which had a life which was very different to ours, but basically, if you want to be cynical, you can say that the motivation and the behavior, the motivation and the behavior of persons are based on homeostasis. We want to be in physical balance, not thirsty, not cold, not warm. We want to feel safe. We want to find our place in the hierarchy, and we have a strong urge for reproduction. The total number of people in the world is increasing all the time. That's proof. So these things are very interesting to dwell on when you look upon the behavior of people. For example, this hierarchy. Insecurity is a very strong factor to consider in communication, for example. Then there is an area called cognitive bias, which is getting more and more interesting. And cognitive bias means that our brain has a distorted way of viewing the world. So our brain has a distorted way of viewing the world. That's cognitive bias. And there was a guy who sat down and made a map of all those mechanisms that were known to man. And it's huge. There are so many ways our brain actually fools us. And here are some examples which are good to know. Confirmation bias, it means that we believe in stuff that confirms what we already know. We stick to information sources that just confirm our beliefs. Cognitive dissonance, it means that if we meet information that gives a ambiguous or view of the world, then we choose to throw away the conflicting information. So, for example, if you're an anti-vaxxer and you hear about people are getting very sick from not being vaccinated, you don't want to listen to that because it distorts the architecture of the intellectual architecture you have built about your world and your beliefs. The bandwagon effect is that when something gets popular, everybody wants to jump the bandwagon and get along. And Dunning-Kruger effect is very, very interesting. It's basically that if you think about what's called theory of mind, it means, can I understand how other people works, how they think? And if you look at the IQ, you have a it's not what do you call it? It doesn't work the same way in both directions. It's asymmetric. So high IQ people understand how low IQ people are thinking, and low IQ people, they cannot understand how high IQ people are thinking. And it means that you cannot understand what you don't understand. So and this is something that high achievers are often struggling with, that they're, to many people, they don't seem like brilliant people. They just seem strange and odd. You should also use modern psychology when you design your slides. And you see that I'm using very, very simple slides. These are principles of perceptual psychology, which can be used when you design your slide decks. And it would take an hour to explain all this. So I have a quick explanation for you. keep directing the attention of the viewer. Make sure that the viewer is looking at exactly what you want them to look at. A very clear example is the ear of the elephant. When these red circles, it made you look at the ear. You should understand that the medium is the message. You cannot talk about beautiful slides if your slides are if they look terrible. You should always make the way you present things coherent with the message, with what you teach. You should have a balance with the familiar and the unfamiliar. You should build a structure with the familiar, and then you should gradually add new stuff. You should not throw people into things where they don't recognize anything. And don't hide what's essential behind less relevant details. That's very common among science people, that they want to bring on all the details. And by doing this, they are actually hiding their main messages. Okay, let's sum up things. So use the chat and reply to those 2 questions. What did you find most interesting? And is there something you can start using already next week? And then we will have 10 minutes for Q&A. So I will stop sharing now. So the first question was, what did you find most interesting? And the second question, is there something you can start using already next week? Oh dear, it became so big. Do you see my message? Feel free to turn on the cameras, and I'm all yours for questions. Combination of rhetoric, journalism, elevator pitch, another toolbox. Yeah, toolbox part. Ethos, pathos, logos. Yes, getting back to the roots. Great. Toolbox thinking. Yes. Journalism for science. Yeah. Jan, I can tell you that there is a presentation technique which is called the Billboard Technique. It was a Swedish guy who invented it. It was very popular among engineers in Sweden. And it worked like this. If you had 40 minutes for a presentation, you only gave a 10-minute presentation with the essentials. And then you said, okay, let's have a discussion. So he presented everything that was the most important at the start. And then he opened the room for a discussion. So people could just fetch the information they wanted from the speaker. It's a bit, it can be bold if it's totally against the local culture, but it's very, very useful in some instances.
Sometimes you can hear that you should not give everything in the beginning, because the story should, like in the Hitchcock, there should be a earthquake in the beginning, but then the interest should only rise. And then if you sell everything in their first sentence, then it's impossible to keep it more and more intense. So that's why I believe, especially writing papers, that's why we keep, or some people keep the most intriguing thought or conclusion till very end, and that's selling everything from the beginning. It's very interesting, I believe, just to keep the attention, and then if you like to have more details, then you have more details.
I think that's an effective method when people are starved of communication. But if you have a very, very competitive environment and people they don't want to waste time on on a wild goose chase, they don't want to read for 20 minutes if they don't find anything interesting. So if you take a magazine or a newspaper, or if you look at sit down an afternoon and look at the TV series, you see that there are always some exciting thing going on to hook you and make you interested and start watching this this TV program and not change the channel.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, Kinga will. What she said is that she will prepare the 3-minute version of the talk that you give, just to make it as a hook for other people,
yes,
for
yes,
people to who are interested to dig for more details.
Yes,
that's very similar.
Yeah. But I know it's very interesting to have this kind of discussions. That what you find out is that there are so many different situations. If you think about the model with the sender, a receiver, the message, and the environment, and the noise, and so on, that there are endless combinations and of how you pick messages, tools, tone of voice, approach, and so on. That's why it's so fun with communication, because it's you start with simple rules like in chess or football or music theory, and then you can do your whole life. You can work with making it more and more complex.
Okay, so I encourage all of the participants to ask a question. And actually, if I can start. So you said about the sender and the receiver. And I wrote that the important part for scientists is that you're in the panel and there is like 5, maybe 10 persons asking you a question. And you know that this 5 minutes talk or 10 minutes interview will affect next 5 years of your life, because you may or may not get a grant.
Yeah.
And then what to do if the receiver there is not very much interested in what you're talking, because they are tired, because you are 25th person during this day.
Yeah.
How to make them interested in?
Yes, and so that's what you're doing in media, in journalism, and so all the time. You always have this competition. So I think the communication culture of science is a bit too polite. You think it's okay, we line up and we deliver our message one by one, and everyone has the same opportunity, and you must be a bit not aggressive, but you must stand your ground, and you must think about what, as I said in tip 1, you should be goal oriented. If I say to you, Jan, when you're going to that, we want to see an effect. It will cost us 8,000 zloty to send you to this conference, and I want you to write a page afterwards, 1 month after and 3 months after, where you report what happened. If I put that mindset in you, you will when you're standing there online, first of all, you have planned something, you have brought something, you had something with you when you came, then you have studied the conference, and then you're thinking when you're standing in the line you're approaching. So they have like three different dimensions to this, and then you will realize that perhaps there is something totally different that will help me. For example, I know that she loves sailing, and I have this. I am building a sailing boat of my own, and then perhaps the right place to have this communication is the hotel lobby, to have a totally different setting, to make it informal, and they will be curious and see that you're interesting because you're taking a totally different route to where you want to get. So when I read LinkedIn profiles, I'm always looking at the small stuff, because there are so many interesting ways of reaching people's hearts. And I mean, you do this in an honest way. It's about creating a relation. You believe in the scientific quest you have, that you want to start a cooperation, but perhaps standing in line and doing as all the others is not the right way of doing it. You're trying to be bold, doing it from a totally different perspective. Being either rebellious or being the one that sums up things, that everyone has blah, 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 been talking about details. And then you decide that I will go upstairs and be the one who actually summarizes this. So that's my universal answer. Try another approach. Thanks, Anna. Yes.
I think that sometimes we mistake or we take this boldness as rudeness. So the people who can be so confident may be perceived by the others as rude. So that's why we hold it back a little.
Yes, but the thing is that if you have a humble mind and a humble heart, it's okay to be bold. So personal modesty, professional boldness. That's what I recommend to young people. And cool. and you can always like then your weaknesses can help you very much. For example, if you have a stutter or something like that, it can really help. Then you can thank your stutter because it makes you not seem arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
So being a bit, having like an image that you're a bit insecure, but presenting something really bold, that's a very cool combination. People will listen to that when it comes from a person who is not like the cocky person with a straight back, but someone who is a bit nervous to yeah. So I have nothing waiting for me. So if there is someone who want to have like, I guess there are many more questions and things you want to discuss, and Elżbieta, are you still with us? Makowska Ciesielska. Are you still here? Yes. Can you elaborate? I didn't really get your comment. It looked interesting. So feel free to turn on audio. Jan, you can ask something.
Yeah, actually, I have my notes as always.
Yeah.
And then you said about inspiration. You said that looking for the inspiration outside of your normal field, outside of your within your peers. So, so who is yours inspiration? Where do you look for the inspiration?
Actually, a lot of literature. I see art. Art is a great inspiration for me. So novels and theater and movies and so on. For example, when we had this DVD explosion, and they had those box sets of DVDs, I noted that when you watched movies with the comments of the directors, it was so interesting. You learned so much. How I like listening to music producers telling how do we make this song great? What is the purpose by adding a flute and so. So I'm moving everywhere. So it's a general curiosity.
My question is because it's again for science people, it's difficult to relate. For example, what you mentioned to be inspired to do science, to find important questions, to actually devote to something that can be worth changing. That was on your slide, that the goal should be to change the world. And then how to relate inspiration from music, from movies, into scientific reality, and to find something that can actually change world.
Yeah. So first of all, we must make a difference between communicating science and doing science. Of course. So I can definitely agree that listening to Mozart, it's hard to like plan an experiment from that. But for example, when you're planning communication. So if you're listening to Haydn, he made this song where there are like I don't remember the melody, but suddenly there is this you jump in your seat. So and you can think, okay, I can use that for a presentation. That first they are just this, and then they have something shocking them, and so that's the mechanism I'm talking about. That you're looking at the architecture or the approach, and then you can say, I can use this for my presentation. I can use this for my poster, and as a matter of fact, did you know that there is a competition, Dance Your PhD? No, it's a great competition. The PhD students who are making a dance out of their research. And there are musicians. There is actually scientists who are making music from their data. And then there are stand-up comedy courses, for example, in England, and it has been in Sweden as well. So they have taken postdocs from the lab, like hardcore lab people, and okay, now we are giving you a course in stand-up comedy, and the final is that we will take you to a pub and you will meet a drunk audience and you must be funny. And the people have been through this. They say that everything is easy after this.
Actually, this happened also in Poland. There was the first scientific stand-up.
Yeah. Hi, Bartek.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, guys.
Hi.
Sorry for late.
No worries.
Actually, I just wanted to say that there is a chance for the final question to Olle, if there is any.
Yeah. I can also. I hope I can. I have a free Q&A the first Monday evening every month. So if you have something like a slide pack or how should, like a dilemma or a task, and want to have like a discussion, you can just tune in and we'll discuss it with the other members of the discussion. And I can send it through the organizers here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, and at the end, I would like to say that Olle agreed to cooperate with Academia, and now it is possible. Can you hear me? Something happened?
I hear you.
Okay, perfect. So Olle is doing the training in science communication, also in cooperation with Academia. So these are the whole days trainings. And if anyone of the audience is interested, we are welcome you to contact Kinga in this respect. And I cannot see any hands, raised hands, or any questions on the chat. So I would like to say tak so mycket. Thank you very much.
Great. Dziękuję bardzo.
And we also say dziękuję bardzo to you. One more time, I would like to invite